All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Mike J, and this is the Nerdcast. The Nerdcast is a more casual stream where we just kind of talk about stuff that's going on in popular culture. Uh, what's on people's minds and lips, and what's going on with various sub industries. But occasionally, though, we do come across some things that might actually be relevant to our main interests, and we'll use pop culture to make a point about it. Although I don't know if that's going to happen today. So, because we haven't really, well, first of all, you guys don't know what the topics are, but also I haven't really given it thought in that way, but I think something could emerge from this. So, I guess let's go ahead and get into it. So, first thing I want to look at is some news. Well, let's just say rumor, although I do think it's pretty much confirmed. So if you hadn't seen it, Rings of Power, or The Lord of the Rings of Power, as the title is, the season ended. I think it was like last week or something. I didn't watch it, so I don't know. And I knew it was like a travesty from the moment I heard that they were announcing it, because I knew they were going to take liberties, and it was going to piss people off. But so I didn't bother watching it. But I did watch a lot of other people do reviews and discuss it, and they were not pleased, most of them. And of course, there's a number of reasons for it, but not least of which is the rewriting of the central character in the new series, Galadriel, who is, in the books and in the Peter Jackson movies, she was kind of like a an elf queen, or an elven leader of some kind. I don't want to get the titles wrong, but that she was this ancient, highly respected female elf, and she wasn't she just had a presence, right? That was like what she was written around. And I guess in these movies, or in this show, Galadriel is a warrior queen that leads armies and other things. And I mean, I think I know the reason for this. I think I know the reason why. I think that a lot of the people who write this stuff, they don't understand what female power can look like, which is what Galadriel is supposed to have. I spoke to Jonathan Pajot about this a while ago, and I asked him about Galadriel, and he explained how she's a very good example of like a strong woman, because she has this these things that we often associate with women. Doesn't mean that it's exclusive to them, but we often associate it with the feminine, things like instinct and the ability to read people and the ability to look into people's hearts. And it was like Tolkien just took that and he made it mythical, and he put it in the Galadriel character. But the people who are writing this show, they only know that in their minds, the only way someone can earn respect and be, respected, is for them to be feared as warriors. And so it's basically like writing her like she's a man, but it's not even writing her like she's a good man, because we don't just respect strength in men, we respect their sacrifice. So in a way, there is a little bit of gender stuff going on, but it's mostly because the writers don't understand women or men, to be honest, that they're running into this problem. So the season ended. Apparently, a lot of people were disappointed. Yes, there's a lot of cope. Yes, there's a lot of people pretending like actually it was pretty good now that I reflect on it, like that, things like that. But those people are either culture junkies that don't know, like they don't have the ability to let go of garbage, or they're basically shills that work for Amazon. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Amazon to retool The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, sideline current showrunners after first season was more of a failure than could have been anticipated. I mean, if you had listened to the fans, you probably would have been able to anticipate this. But with Amazon's live-action bastardization of J.R.R. Tolkien's seminal fantasy works having underperformed by practically every metric, a new rumor suggests that the company will be retooling The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, for its second season, starting with the sidelining of its current showrunners, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay. J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, by the way, if you guys don't know this, they used to work under J.J. Abrams. They're like, what'd you call it, protege? Word of this apparent shakeup was first suggested by noted film critic, industry insider, and Film Threat founder Chris Gore during an appearance on a 314th episode of the YouTube livestream show Midnight's Edge in the Morning. Discussing the series' first season finale with that day's panel, Gore was eventually asked by host Andre Einherjar, "What have you heard from your peers in the industry? Is everyone so impressed with the Rings of Power like the showrunners suggest we should be?" To which the critic admitted back, no. In fact, said Gore, not only were his industry contacts unimpressed with season 1, but the reception to it was so generally abysmal that Amazon has set out to course correct for season 2. So now they're scrambling to rewrite season 2 if they hadn't started it already. I heard that someone who has a connect at Amazon that if you want to know, that effectively they're going to be retooling, he explained. And Payne and McKay are more than likely their role will either be reduced or they're going to get fired. Potentially just remaining in the writer's room, he added. But my understanding is that they're looking for more experienced showrunners. Okay. So just a couple of, and I have this other article that I think is related to it. If I can, here we go. Amazon head of series development, Mark Restaghini, to step down in restructuring. So there is a restructuring going on. Mark Restaghini, the head series development at Amazon Studios, is exiting the company amid management restructuring, Variety has confirmed with sources. Restaghini is said to be currently negotiating at producing deals with Amazon that will keep him in the company fold and allow him to develop new projects there in the future. Sources say that the duties of Restaghini's job will be split up between Nick Pepper, Amazon's head of creative content, and Laura Lancaster, its head of series. They will both report to Vernon Sanders, Amazon's head of U.S. Global Television. Amazon declined to comment. So there is at least one guy. There is at least one guy who is leaving Amazon. We don't have all the details as to why, but so now look, the investment that they made, and this is like I think the big reason why this is a huge deal. They put a lot of money into this show. I think it's like $1 billion show, and they were down for like 5 seasons. They were so sure that this was going to be a hit. And I guess like in a way, I could see how if you just have like access to Tolkien, then, it's almost like it should have been an automatic win. It should be like an automatic win. But they are mishandling the source material badly. They're making up a bunch of shit. They're focused on the wrong things, like this, all of this like diversity, equity, inclusion stuff. It almost seems like they wanted to sabotage this. And by extension, sabotage Amazon, because Amazon's like this is why I think a lot of people are going to get fired and they're going to start over because or at least try to like course correct, because this is so like such a bad move. It's such a massive blunder that you have to ask yourself, like, are they doing this shit on purpose? So I don't know, Mike J. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, this is pretty much all they can do at this point. It's been such a shit show that, yeah, might as well just blank slate it and try again for the next season.
Yeah. I wonder if Amazon's going to be able to, like, if they're going to be willing to keep investing the money into this. I mean,
well, I mean, if anyone's got money to piss away into the wind, it's Amazon.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Although I think this is probably the biggest thing they've ever invested in. I mean, it's probably the biggest thing anyone in entertainment has invested in. Sure. So anyway, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope they figure something out. I think that they should just maybe don't do Lord of the Rings. Maybe, see if anyone's interested in a never ending story prequel or something. Like maybe. Let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. And yeah, we're gonna move on to the next story. So leave us a comment or send us a super chat if you wish. Ahmad Herv gives us €5 and says, it is a woke show, but the problem is deeper. The plots are so incoherent. It is no longer episodes. It is IQ tests where you must find all the errors. Well, yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people went through, because the thing is that the show it throws the lore out. So people who know the lore, especially the lore of the Second Age, they're going to be raising a bunch of questions. But these are questions that Amazon never intended to answer because they're not using that as a basis. So of course it's full of errors. Go ahead, Mike. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that, like, and I think they still could have made a successful show and made it woke at the same time if they had just respected the lore just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit.
Maybe
they could have made something that, like just the average person was merely okay with.
Yeah, maybe.
And it would have been fine, but they had to go just hyper on the subject of everything, and that's what turned a lot of people off.
Yeah. Well, that brings up a good question. I'll ask the audience. Just let us know what you think. So Tolkien was an Anglican. He was a highly religious man, right? And so he wrote Lord of the Rings. He says in interviews that it's one of those things where if you are a religious man and you believe in God, if you tell a story, that's going to come out. So it's not because he's bent on making people convert, but I think it's because it will influence his writing, right? If you like C.S. Lewis, C.S. Lewis's Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, it's a lot more on the nose, but I think that Tolkien still had in its core what the story of the Ring and Frodo and everything else, all of that that was, I believe, informed in part by his faith and also like the biblical stories. And so there's a lot of allusions to that in Lord of the Rings. And the thing is that these people, I don't think that woke people understand that about story structure. And I'm of the personal belief that if you like try to make something woke and you want to add race swaps, gender swaps, empowerment to women, these things, I think that if you are consciously injecting those things into your story, then it's going to be a woke story, and I think that um, Tolkien's work is inherently anti-woke. So I don't know that those things are compatible. I that doesn't mean that you couldn't have moments for female characters. Obviously, you can, but because they did it in Lord of the Rings and stuff, with Eowyn, I think her name is. Um, but I wonder about that. I wonder if because this is something I've been talking to my wife about lately, where I'm like, well, what's the difference between regular storytelling and woke storytelling? And I think it's that regular storytelling, if it's well done, it's looking at ancient archetypes and patterns throughout history. And sometimes it's not like people are consciously thinking about these things. Like, it's not like they're thinking about, the Epic of Gilgamesh when they tell a story. But if they were open to many of those tales when they were younger, it will influence their present. And I think that a lot of those do fall into the sort of hero's journey pattern, uh, and all these other sort of similar patterns. So that I think that's why. And again, I could be wrong. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Can you do a woke story that still, is really well done or follows a, let's say, the ancient patterns that we come to desire to see? It's not even that we expect it; we just want to see it. Is it, like, think about it. Is The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and Star Wars not all basically the same story? And yet we like them all, and, despite the fact that they basically are the same. And that's just one example of one, type. But I'm just saying, like, if you break that pattern, because you want to, like, change something, you want to make the woman the main character, you want to, make this kind of change. What does is that something that can be done? So I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I'm gonna move on to the next story now. All right. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. James Gunn, Peter Safran. I don't know who Peter Safran is, but I can look at to lead the film, television, and animation division at DC Studios, or Warner Brothers DC Studios. So, this in a stunning turn of events, filmmaker James Gunn and producer Peter Safran have been tapped to lead the DC's film, television, and animation efforts as co-chairs and co-CEO of DC Studios, a newly formed division at Warner Brothers that will replace DC Films. The unprecedented move, in which a top director will assume a top executive post, marks the end of a months-long search by Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav to replace DC Films boss Walter Hamada, who departed the studio last week. That search had all of Hollywood guessing and playing executive bingo for who would land one of the most coveted and challenging jobs in town. In recent weeks, Gunn and Safran were spotted on the Warner Brothers lot meeting with Warner's film co-chair, Michael DeLuca, about future projects. And according to sources, the initial overture to Safran and Gunn came from DeLuca over the summer, even as the studio was in shaky talks with producer Dan Lin to take the job. Gunn will focus on the creative side of things, while Safran will focus on the business and production side. Both are expected to continue direct and produce projects, respectively. They will report directly to Zaslav and work closely with Warner film bosses DeLuca and Pamela Abdi. Sources say the deal runs for 4 years and Gunn will be exclusive to DC. The goal is for them not just to be producers, but to truly function as executives, even as Gunn will occasionally hone a movie. So we can. I think we can just go from here. So, Gunn, he gave DC Comics a good. I guess it was the what was the name of the? Was it the Suicide Squad? But like the sequel that doesn't. It's not called Suicide Squad 2. I think James
It's
Gunn.
just like the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I think it's the Suicide Squad, and James Gunn gave or made that for DC. And I think that the Suicide Squad was very successful compared to other DC movies that usually like kind of fell flat. And the real show stealer in it was John Cena as Peacemaker, right? I think that's the name of the character he played.
Yeah, he went on and got his own show,
And I was gonna say, and then later on, after that, he went on. Peacemaker went on to get his own TV show, and I think that when they look at okay, what's everything that because look, DC like the DCEU is a mess. It just is. It's a mess. I mean, Marvel is essentially killing itself, but the DCEU is basically just like it doesn't know what it's doing. It's out of control. It's just falling apart, right? It's gone chaotic. And at least with Marvel you can see that every attempt they have made to basically make something good, you can see why they're trying to do it. Like what was I talking about? Marvel? No, you can see what Marvel's doing. They're not trying to entertain; they're trying to preach, and they're putting something preachy into every aspect of what they're producing. Whether it's a series like She-Hulk is trying to educate us on women's, I don't know, suffering, I guess. And but it could also it doesn't matter if it's that or if it's Wakanda Forever, which is going to be about the struggle, because every movie that ever exists with black people in it has to be about the struggle because it's the thing that they want to go to movies to see. And um and like that's obvious, right? But then DC is just doing things like they gave us like Man of Steel, which I hated, and I know that a lot of people out there liked it and they've like made their defenses of it, but that's not a Superman movie as far as I'm concerned. And it's really the main concern I have about like what is James Gunn gonna do? Like is he gonna just reboot everything? Um or is he gonna try to salvage things? I'd like to see him do it. I mean, I honestly would like to see what good James Gunn could do because he's I think the thing that put him on the map, and I knew about him from the Trauma days. I already knew about James Gunn. Like anyone who watched like old Trauma movies probably know who James Gunn is, and a lot of the people who often appear in films with him or that he's made. But barring that, in the mainstream, uh, James Gunn's big hit was Guardians of the Galaxy, which was a great film, and it was and upon reflection, seemed like a really good fit for James Gunn because he likes movies with really weird characters in them, and he never had a budget like this before, so it worked out. But and so he went on to do something similar with Suicide Squad, which again, it works for the same reasons. It's an ensemble cast of weird characters. And it seems like something that he not only is good at doing, but enjoys doing. And I suppose he's still giving us a Guardians 3, even though he now has a job with DC. I wonder if that's still the case. That's a good question. Mike, do you have a thought on that?
I mean, if this is their throwing crap at a wall and seeing what sticks sort of response to the DCEU,
yeah,
they could certainly do worse than James Gunn.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Mel Enlim says, please cover the Brittany Higgins trial. Yeah, we're looking into it. So don't worry. We're looking into it's Australia's version of Amber Heard. Speaking of throwing shit, we are going to look into it. So thank you for the reminder. All right. So yeah. So what do you guys think about James Gunn being put in charge of essentially the DC world, or what would you call it? The DC division of Warner Brothers. Um, I mean, like I said, I hope that he can, you know, do something for them. I think that I mean, look, I'm not invested in whether or not DC or Marvel start making good movies. I'm honestly not invested, but I don't really want the industry to just implode, because I know that there's a lot of good people that work there, and they're they just want to keep their jobs, right? And so if they just made stuff that people want to watch, then I'll take it. I'm probably not going to watch it, but because I don't see how it's going to improve so much that I would find it appealing. But there are people who, they're always optimistic about, their favorite franchises. So I hope for their sake. But yeah, so looks like Zaslav has essentially like came in, cleaned house, gave James Gunn this position, and now James Gunn is in charge of DC. As far as Guardians 3 goes, my understanding is that it's in post-production now, so Gunn's input is no longer necessary anyhow. So I guess we'll see when that time comes. And yeah, good luck. I'm not as angry with DC as I am with Marvel. So, I didn't like Man of Steel because I didn't think the characterization of Superman or several other characters was very well done, and I hated the fact that they just made Zod the villain again. I can't stand the Zod thing. I mean, when they did it in Superman 2 and the old classic Superman, when they did it back then, I was a kid and I liked it. But when I started reading the comics, I learned about the Rogues Gallery. And there was no Zod. I mean, there was like one or two issues about Zod, but he wasn't a mainstay. And I was kind of pissed about that, because I was like, well, of all the characters you guys could have picked to be the main antagonist, you had to go with the guy who is basically just Superman, evil Superman. And a lot of people will say, well, that's the only thing that can work, but that's just not true. Like there's a number of workarounds. Now, for the first time out, okay, fine, let's do Zod. I'm okay with that. The Richard Donner one, cool. But when Zack Snyder made Man of Steel, he didn't have to go with Zod. He could have, I don't know, he could have done anything else. And then after Zod, they give us Doomsday, who is basically just Zod again. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but that's all it was. So it was like it's very, very unfair. And on top of that, it's the thing that really pissed me off about Man of Steel is, and I don't know why people defend this, but in the original film, the Richard Donner one, I thought that they handled the death of John Kent, although I mean, like, they killed him off. They didn't have to, but let's just say, okay, fine. They handled killing off John Kent really well, because they gave him a heart attack, and he died from a heart attack. And the reason why that works really well is because Superman despite all of his power, couldn't stop that. He was powerless to save his father, right? And that was a really important lesson, but it was also a powerful statement because, like again, a lot of the people who write stories today, that one of their main obsessions is with power. Like they think that power decides what kind of person you are. It means that you're a good person or something, right? Only people with power are allowed to use it, and it doesn't even matter if we're supposed to like those people. It doesn't matter if they abuse their power, which is what things like She-Hulk and Captain Marvel do all the time, because we're supposed to think that because they're aggrieved women folk, it makes it okay for them to break people's hands and like use an excessive amount of strength. Okay, and in so Jonathan Kent dying of a heart attack in the original Superman film is a perfect way to drive home this idea that there are people that Superman can't save. And they didn't do in the Man of Steel. They couldn't do that. I don't know why. They could have done something like that, but they didn't do that. Instead, they like brought a tornado to it was like a tornado on the farm or something, and John Kent had told Clark earlier in the film, and this is another thing about John Kent that I never understood because it's not in line with him, that he should not, like, above everything else, he should hide who he is. So like his identity needs to be hidden. It's the top priority, right? And Superman even says, but what if there's like a bus full of kids, and they're gonna fall off a cliff, should I let them? And he's like, maybe. And just to hide your identity, right? And I'm like, that makes no sense. Like, the Kents are very good people. They're Christians. They're basically everything that about, like, middle America, as idealized as it gets. That's what they were. And so, like, the idea that they would say, well, think of yourself first, it doesn't make sense. And it's where Kal-El gets his values. He gets it from his parents. He didn't get it from his ultra genius scientist father. I mean, he learned some things from Jor-El, but like, he got his values from the Kents. And so for them to throw that out, and I know why. I know that Zack Snyder's kind of a utilitarian objectivist. So he basically is like, well, what is the most practical and rational solution? And it's like, but that's not necessarily the good solution. So that's my beef with Man of Steel. And then of course there's him killing Zod, which is a product of the same thing. And of course Zack Snyder's like, I don't care if all my superheroes are gonna kill people. Like, he's just like, he thinks that this is like some edgy new thing that no one's ever thought of before, and that he's going to show us for the first time. But it just doesn't sell, and it certainly doesn't sell for Superman. So they're gonna be taking the reins back, and we're gonna get into another story in a little bit about how Henry Cavill is returning to play Superman, according to reports from Cavill himself. And also, like, some post credit scene or mid post credit scene at the end of Black Adam that basically confirms it. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And so I don't know. Do you want to move on, Mike, or do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
All we've said that needs to be said on that.
All right. So, Star Wars. Did you know that there is another Star Wars movie in the works.
I mean, not specifically, but does this news surprise me? No.
Right. It actually, like, I mean, I figured they were just gonna make series, but apparently they feel ready to put out another movie. So Damon Lindelof, who I think he worked on Lost, I believe. But I'll look into it. I'll read the article. More updates on Damon Lindelof's mysterious Star Wars movie. So, where is spoiler warning? I know. THR reports that Damon Lindelof's mysterious new Star Wars movie will be co-written by Justin Britt Gibson, who I guess was one of the writers on a show called The Strain, which is about vampires or something. The project is described as a standalone story that could potentially lead to more movies and could be set after the events of The Rise of Skywalker, following up on characters from the sequel trilogy. Very exciting. Those are my favorite characters. THR additionally reports Tobin Bell will reprise his role. No, I don't care about that. Oh, is that all they're gonna say about it? Yeah. So let me go. So they got this guy. I'm gonna look up Damon Lindelof. Fairly certain that Damon Lindelof Star Wars movie. Justin Brett Gibson is penning the script, and Lindelof with the film potentially bringing back some characters from the 2010 films. Lindelof is the guy on the left here. The secret Star Wars movie project that has been led creatively by Damon Lindelof was thrust into the open on Sunday night when it was revealed that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, who directed 2 episodes of Ms. Marvel, was on board as Helmer. So they had, I think she was the showrunner on Ms. Marvel, but I might be wrong. I might be thinking about somebody else. But she was involved in the direction of 2 episodes of Ms. Marvel, and they're putting her on a Star Wars movie. The project has been in the works for months, and while Lindelof is getting the Wookiee-sized share of attention, thanks in no small part to a pedigree that includes co-creating TV sensation Lost and shepherding the acclaimed HBO series Watchmen, you know, the one that didn't like isn't it true that Alan Moore came out and talked a lot of shit about that series? He is by no means the only person involved in this project. In fact, if Lost and Watchmen, as well as The Leftovers, another beloved series Lindelof created, have shown anything, it's that one of the writer's chief talents is picking collaborators. So, this is going to be a train wreck. None of these people, I don't know, maybe I'm like an old fogey, but none of these people understand what Star Wars is. They just think that they can put Star Wars stuff into a movie about something else that they would rather talk about, and that everyone will simply accept it because spaceships and aliens and droids. But I have a really bad feeling about this. So I don't think this is gonna. And then well, I don't know. They're just gonna damage the brand more. I mean, I guess that doesn't really mean much because the brand is dead now. I've said this years ago. Star Wars died when I think it died at what's the second Star Wars sequel movie. What was the name of that one?
The Last Jedi.
Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, The Force Awakens.
Last Jedi and
The Last Jedi, and God, I can't even remember the third one.
that you the Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, it just shows, like if I was like if it was like the 90s and I brought up like the I don't know, Turn of the Jedi, people would like I wouldn't have a problem bringing it up, and everyone wouldn't have a problem talking about it, and that there'd be excitement and everything, right? But these sequels, I don't remember the names. Like I mean, they're like I only watched Force Awakens. Yeah, I only watched Force Awakens. I didn't. A friend of mine, he was like, "Come on, let's." He had bought the Last Jedi on Blu-ray or something, and he's like, "Let's watch it. I don't think it's that bad." And I'm like, "No, no, I don't want to watch it. I don't. I like. How can the Force Awakens killed the trilogy? You can't like. There's nothing in it. You could literally not even watch that movie and just like skip to the Last Jedi if you wanted to, because it wouldn't change anything because nothing happens in the Force Awakens
I remember
except
I gave the Force Awakens a shot, and I remember being really ambivalent toward it because it was they were just remaking A New Hope essentially,
yeah, but not as well.
and I'm like, okay, well, it could turn out really bad. They might be able to turn it around. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had some friends that were going and seeing uh, The Last Jedi. I'm like, I might as well go see it. Like the whole thing with the first one was like, even if I heard it was terrible, you're still gonna go see it in theaters just to say like, hey man, I was there. I was there in theaters when this thing came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went, and the other thing too is like my grandfather wanted to go see it, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, well, this is probably going to be one of the last movies my grandfather ever watches in theater, so I'm going to go. And
Yeah.
wow.
I know. Yeah, the
I
problem.
remember like I not my friend group who went and did this, but I remember another friend group, and I remember
Mm-hmm.
one of my friends was just like so dejected after the movie, and one of his other friends asked him like, what's wrong? He's like, I just watched a Star Wars movie, and at no point in the movie did two lightsabers crash against each other and make that noise.
Yeah. Wait, did that not
And it's like
happen
it
in?
that never happened in The Last Jedi.
Oh, I have no idea. I don't
There
know,
was
but
never a lightsaber versus lightsaber fight.
there was no lightsaber duel. Wow.
And when you
Wow.
think about that, it's like,
Say what
really,
you
that's
say what you want about the prequels, but all three of them had some badass lightsaber fights.
mm-hmm.
So all three of them, and uh, especially, and no, you can't deny that Darth Maul versus Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan isn't like completely bad. Like it set the tone for the rest of the trilogy. Like after that was over, everybody was like, "Well, we want more of this." That's for sure. And then in the second movie, you got like Count Dooku versus Anakin and Obi-Wan, and then Yoda. But then before that, there's like the battle on Geonosis, where it's all manner of Jedi running around fighting giant mosquitoes and you know arena beasts and Boba Fett or Jango Fett and shit. And then in Revenge of the Sith, uh, like it all comes down to Anakin versus um Obi-Wan. They that's what people want. I mean, it's not the only thing, but Star Wars fans, they want to see badass lightsaber battles. I mean, it was such a big deal that there were normal kids, recreating or creating completely new um, lightsaber battles with choreography and music and everything. Do you guys remember that when there were these viral videos of guys like fighting with lightsabers, and they would do like um this crazy ass choreography? Do you remember seeing
Mm-hmm.
that, Mike?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it was huge. But like there's really nothing like that. I mean, like the in any of those movies, to be honest, because it was like everyone forgot how to do it or something. I don't know. So, um, but yeah, it was very popular, and I think it's maybe it's just me, but I think it's the reason is that it's kind of a male thing. Like we like to see, you know, like uh this kind of competition, duels. Like you like movies where there are swashbucklers and they're like in Pirates of the Caribbean. There's a lot of swashbuckling in that. Or I watched The Mask of Zorro the other day, and amazing fight scenes in that. Such a good movie. If you've never seen it, The Mask of Zorro, it's great. And I think that it's something that men are drawn to. They like to see that. It's like tests of skill, right? And I think that in the case with the Star Wars sequels, um, they just didn't put a lot of value in that because they're telling a story about a woman now, I guess. And they didn't want to ask her to do too much. I mean, how could she? Nobody trained her as far as I understand it. Like she never learned to fight. But nonetheless, it doesn't really matter, right? It was just like she's just the Jedi because they said she was, and so she could do stuff. There was no training. She like Jedi mind tricked a guard by just like I don't know trying really hard. It's fucking oh man. Anyway, so annoying. Um. Anyhow, yeah. So it looks like they're writing a new movie, and it doesn't sound good. I'm not optimistic. But we'll see as time goes on. Maybe we'll learn something else, maybe something promising, but I wouldn't hold my breath. And then we got our last story. So let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. I already mentioned this earlier. Henry Cavill is returning as Superman. So nothing shocking here, especially since he appeared in the post-credit sequence at the end of Black Adam, which apparently made about $140 million globally.
What have you heard about Black Adam? I'm interested.
I heard it was a movie. Like honestly, people that I've spoken to. Okay, so I think this is it. I think that if you're really like um demoralized by just movies in general, especially action movies, not necessarily superhero movies, but if you're disappointed in the absolute state of action and superhero films, Black Adam is going to feel like a breath of fresh air. But it's one of those you have to like don't ask too much because it's The Rock. And
Yeah.
you'll probably be fine. What I was told is, and I think this is like this probably does read as true to me. What I was told is that Dr. Fate, played by Pierce Brosnan, is the person that steals the show in terms of their acting.
I could see that.
Yeah, because I mean, so I don't know how much Dr. Fate is in the movie, but I think okay, so if you have an actor like The Rock, you have an actor like that who doesn't have a lot of range. Let's face it, The Rock movies are all like action comedies basically. They're all like that. Either that or they're very self-aware about being really over the top while pretending to be serious, but they're not totally at all serious. And so like that's every Fast and Furious movie he's been in. That's Hobson Shaw. That's, all the buddy movies he did with like people like, I don't know who he did it with, Will Ferrell or whoever it was. Uh, Kevin Hart. I think he was in those Jumanji video game movies, which I saw the first one. It was pretty good. Um, but The Rock doesn't have a lot of range. He always plays the same kinds of characters. I couldn't see him doing Black Adam because Black Adam's kind of a brooding, dictator, like villain. He's not actually an anti-hero. I don't know why they even made this movie. But I don't think Black Adam is an anti-hero. I could be wrong. It could be that, he's one of those villains that doesn't always fit neatly into a box. Like he's not going to be robbing banks or anything like that. He basically rules countries. But yeah, so when you have an actor like that, okay, like The Rock, and he's playing the main character in your movie, you're going to need someone else to like pick up the acting chops slack. And I believe that that's the purpose of Dr. Fate, because first of all, it's Pierce Brosnan. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about because he has a British accent. And he looks badass, like the beard and everything. And I even thought that was really good casting for Dr. Fate. And, he's basically like the intellectual, right? So that works. I just don't know how much Dr. Fate there is in the movie and if it's enough. So, because I understand that, spoiler alert, guys, he gets killed. And everybody was disappointed in that because they really liked him. And I always thought the Dr. Fate character was cool in comics. So, but yeah, according to what I heard, Black Adam is a lot of action. Don't expect a lot of substance. The story is a bit cliche. There's a CGI fight at the end, which is kind of lame, but it's what I guess this is just what DC does now. And trying to recall what else. But it's a decent ride. Like turn off your brain, grab some popcorn, hang out with your buddies, and you'll probably, you won't hate yourself when it's over.
It's past the one metric that I kind of have, which is on the Rotten Tomatoes, the critics seem to hate it, but the audience has it like I think 90 plus.
Wow. Yeah, they probably are so happy that it's not like woke garbage that they're just gonna give it a
and it's like you said, it's oh my god, a completely mediocre non-woke movie. Please take my money.
Yeah, exactly. It is. I mean, I heard there's a little bit of woke in it, but that it's like, it's there and gone, and it's like whatever. But yeah. So I mean, and then they put Superman at the end, who basically says, to Black Adam, we need to talk, and that is, cheers in theaters all over the place. I guess I didn't know this, but I guess a lot of people were pretty sure that Henry Cavill was just going to be out, and I was like, but why? Like I don't get that. I like Henry Cavill, honestly. It's not even like a crazy popular. Well, I didn't think it was a very popular position, but I think that as far as Superman actors go, I can't think of anyone better except maybe one of the guys that plays him on one of the TV shows. But because there's like a show called Lois and Clark, I think, and that guy's a pretty good Superman too. But yeah, I don't know that.
That was Dean Cain.
No, I'm not thinking about D. Cain. Is that okay? I might be thinking about. So there was it's a show. It has a name that maybe it's not Lois and Clark, but it's like similar, and it's about Superman and Lois and their child, and it's a newer show, so it's not like the old Dean Cain show. Superman and Lois. Okay, thank you, Tyler. That's what it's called. So it's called Superman and Lois, and it's one of those WB shows where they just like, but from what I heard, it's one of the better ones. So I don't know. I don't watch it. But yeah, so that's the news. Originally, I think they were gonna make Superman like a black guy, and then put him in, because I guess there's a black Superman somewhere in the DC universe. I know that there are characters like Icon, but and some alternate universe guys, but they were gonna do that, and then I think Zaslav said no. We need to reel all this shit in and go right back to basics. And that's why they brought back Henry Cavill. So, all right. So, I know that you got to go. Do you guys that are watching have any thoughts on any of these stories that we covered? I'd like to hear them about them in the comments. We are going to close the show out and go hang out with the patrons and basically continue the discussion. So if you'd like to be a part of that, please go to feedthebadger.com and set up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into the Discord, where you'll be able to participate in the patron shows and the discussions. And there's lots of other stuff that are always going on in our Discord. So please consider joining us. So with all that said, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we talked about on the show, and please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of the Nerdcast, and we will talk to you all in...
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.